Before screening their film Froggy at the 2024 Galway Film Fleadh, brothers Luke and Jake Morgan described Ireland as a country of rebel artists. They proceeded to dedicate the screening to the rebel artists who comprise Ireland's rich history as well as the rebel artists in the audience that night. It really struck a chord with me. How am I supposed to be as rebellious as anti-colonialist Jonathan Swift or queer icon Oscar Wilde? Well, by bleaching my hair and getting my thigh tattooed. That's being a rebel artist, alright. But yeah, that comes a little later during the trip. Let's start from the beginning. It was about 8 a.m. when we landed in Dublin. There was no time to rest. We immediately went from Dublin to Northern Ireland to see a Game of Thrones exhibition, then to the northern capital, Belfast, to do a walking tour. There was a piece of graffiti that really stood out to me. It was of a Greco-Roman deity holding a limp dove shot by 2 arrows representing the fighting between Catholics and Protestants. Then, at the end of the day, I got buzzed for my first ever pint. As you can see, I failed to split the G. A couple of days later, there was a day trip to various sites in Northern Ireland, including the Giant's Causeway, a global heritage site. I was mastering the art form of rebellion by climbing up the rocks where no one else was doing so. Turns out that was for a reason, because it wasn't allowed, or something, and I was told to get down. Then we went to the Republic of Ireland, more specifically Galway, for the film Fleadh. This was by far my favorite portion of the trip. Galway is a beautiful town with such lovely people, and the Fleadh is something I'll never forget. Especially the opening night, where they screened Kneecap, and I got a selfie with one of the rap group members. Let me tell you, Kneecap are real rebel artists. Their anti-establishment rhetoric and musical sound put my rock climbing escapade to shame. Perhaps the most gorgeous place I've ever been to was Galway, and its beach, Salt Hill. The pictures I managed to take looked like they were ripped right out of something Cartoon Saloon would animate. More on them later. When we left Galway for Dublin, we stopped in Limerick, and I was geeking the hell out, because that's where my favorite book is set. If you haven't read Angela's Ashes or seen the film adaptation directed by Alan Parker, I highly recommend doing so. But yeah, we stopped at King John's Castle, and I got a view of the whole city. It felt just like author Frank McCourt's descriptions in his book Angela's Ashes. We finally made it to Dublin and the itinerary mellowed out. A lot of time was allocated towards assignments for studying abroad and just general free time. We went to the Irish Film Institute as a group where I indulged in some not Irish cinema by watching Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness and then buying a Blu-ray of Gregor Raki's Mysterious Spin. The final days of the trip were spent immersing myself in Irish culture. I visited the old library at Trinity College where the Book of Kells and Irish Declaration of Independence are housed. My last full day in Ireland was spent on a tour with my friends of Glendalough and Kilkenny. Though when we arrived in Kilkenny, I took a detour from the group to visit the studio of Cartoon Saloon, famous for their animated Irish folklore trilogy. Some kind animators on lunch break let me look inside. The whole thing was magical. I even got a selfie with the one and only Pongerbon. I didn't take any photos or videos going back to America. I was really upset and didn't want to return to such a terrible mess. But I realized something. It's time that I honed my rebel artistry and make that applicable to the stifling climate I'm from.